Story 1. The Whispering Woods. Kayla was always fascinated by mysteries, the ones that made her stomach flip out of both terror and excitement. Spreading the brittle yellowed map across the coffee table, she followed the faded scribbles that labeled Whispering Woods on the map with her fingers. Her friends Jenna, Tyler, and Mark moved closer as the flashlight placed on the coffee table oddly glowed dimly. "This is exactly where those kids disappeared." Kayla traced her address with finger and confidently murmured. This story about children had emerged deadly in her hometown. Children were commanded to refrain entering the woods since soft whispers were said to entice them deep inside, from which they would never return. Honestly, it is nothing but a tale. People tend to enjoy scaring themselves. I mean, come on, let's see for ourselves. Tyler retreated with an exaggerated grin, though he struggled to uphold it. Mark felt unsure while Jenna was cautious, but the drive within Kayla was very inviting. By the time the sun was setting, the four of them were situated at the edge of the forest. The reek of minerals filled the air since a slight fog was slowly wrapping around their feet. As they took their first few steps into the forest, nothing exceptional occurred. But the deeper you traversed, the darkness of the forest began to increase alongside the plaza. The trees began to turn skeletal. The whispers were finally ready to make their entrance and join the atmosphere. Jenna, Mark, Kayla, Tyler. Even though the voices seemed familiar, Kayla found it difficult to recognize them. She totally froze. Did anyone say that? Jenna tightened her grip around Mark's arm and peered at him. Tyler made an effort to swallow and assured, "It's merely a windy day," yet his reckless voice and a telltale tremble made it quite clear. The shushes surfaced and transformed into an unsettling symphony. The hearing support altered reality into a slithering thump. "There's still time to go," Kayla tries to suggest caution, but instantly regretted it, as Tyler had disappeared. "Tyler!" Mark sobbed as he lifted the pitch of his voice. A shadow whizzed by, somewhere between the trees, which was much too human and too fast in speed. Their flashlights began to spin and dim out, plunging them into darkness. As a result, Jenna cried and Kayla felt for something in the dark and found nothing except air. Under the hazy sunlight, the woods settled and turned mute. At a distance, only a singular ripped shoe accompanied an intricately detailed, water-drenched map at the border of the forest. Every person who retrieved the map could exclusively make out hushed laughter, taunting, distant, everlasting. Story 2. The Curse of the Mirror. Megan was a fanatic of antique shops. The idea of uncovering unbelievably unique items, which were predating her existence, was always exhilarating for her. But with her sight resting on the lavish mirror, an uncomfortable feeling coursed through her body. The outline of the glass was intricate, being surrounded by beautifully sculpted roses and twirling vines, but the surface of the glass was too shiny, almost unnatural. "It's not for sale." The shopkeeper appeared near her, overhearing their conversation. He had a grim expression, and his voice was low and cold. "Why not sell it?" Megan inquired while attempting to appear nonchalant. He stayed silent for a second and then replied, "It is a cursed item. It shows things which you are not supposed to see." Megan shrugged while nervously chuckling. "Don't worry, it's just a mirror." Ignoring the man's words, she brought it home with her. She placed the mirror over the wall in her bedroom the following evening. The muddled reflection the room held seemed to emit a dim brightness. While brushing her hair, Megan was bewildered. Her reflection seemed to be moving much slower than her. Shrugging the thought away, she decided that it was her imagination. While asleep that night, murmurs filled the room, waking her up. Sitting upright, she looked over to the mirror. The outer covering over the mirror looked possessed, as the surface looked like a body of water, while her reflection smirked at her. There was this one problem. She wasn't smiling. "Who are you?" Megan wrote, trembling with fear. The glass started to crack now. Where did this darkness come from? Who are you and why are you here? Before I could fully process the information, the reflection began to speak, but pitched differently. Know that you shouldn't be able to scream, and then it happened. Chaos erupted all around me, and all I could hear was the sound of glass deafening me. I knew this was the end. There was no way I could fight it even if I wanted to. Out of the corner of my eye, I witnessed myself battered and bruised, seeing the world through a completely different lens. Story 3, Exploring the Forgotten Room. As he has always put it, James always had a bit of a morbid side to him. More importantly, he was very hands-on exploring the dilapidated mansion he had inherited. As faint as the corridors were, the doors were pitch black, hidden in bookshelves. So it's safe to say behind the ancient door was frost-bitten splintered wood. These all were found in an old library. As he entered the room, who wouldn't want to step into a room that gave an eerie feeling while being raw in nature? Bound, preventing him from suffocating, were leathers suffocating the diary resting onto the chair facing its owners. James slid his fingers across the untouched pages, breathlessly stating, "I know who's in this room. I know who's that guy." James's heartbeat also quickened. Shivering in the cold, he took a deep breath and looked behind him. Then he heard the chair creaking once again. Slowly, he swivels around to face the chair that had 3 too many shiny, sharp teeth with the face shrouded. The voice that remarked, "Welcome home," felt no different than nails scratching a chalkboard to him. The door bashed shut as James began walking backward. The figure grew larger with the lights flickering, and the grin further widened. Then darkness covered it and it pounced the very next moment as light illuminated the place. The room was devoid of all life come the morning. The chair was adorned with an open diary which had a recent entry written in crimson ink. A new note in the diary. Another one joins me. Story 4, The Lost Town. The very first thought Sam had during his life was that he visited a town that had closed its doors and walked out while leaving the other in a primeval state of neglect. It was then Sam realized how special of a gift this was gifted to an hypertrophic urban explorer. Arriving just post-sunset, the group parked their car on the gravel-ridden streets, bringing in an echoing sound to the thriving cities. The American society had a freeze-motion blockbuster replaying continually with scrounged automobiles stashed beside storefronts and eerie road signs scattered around the vicinity. Tables adorned with uneaten food could be observed from the diner. "This place," Sam casually murmured, shamelessly pocketing his camera. "This place is a gold mine." But Jess shivered, glancing around. "Something feels wrong." Footsteps echoed outside. They froze, exchanging nervous glances. Sam peeked through the window. Figures stood in the street, entirely still, having their faces covered in darkness. "We're not alone," Jess breathed. The figures shifted closer. One moment they were outside, the next they were inside the diner. Sam's friends screamed one after another to each other as they began to disperse into black smoke. Sam dropped the camera, which fell on the ground, producing nothing but distortion. Weeks after the incident, when the police managed to reach the place, the only thing they managed to recover was a camera. Everything around it was darkness except for Sam's frightened face that was staring in the lens while whispering, "Don't come here." Story 5. The Dollmaker's curse. Emily was aware of the rumors, but she chose not to believe them. The Dollmaker wasn't anything more than a dramatized story, something parents used to entertain children that were beginning to stray. So when she disrupted his new workspace without a remote, she did not think twice about opening the door. Dolls filled the shelves, looking deceptively realistic. Their blank eyes seemed to move with every action she made. But there was a single doll located right in the middle of the room that was more appealing to her. The eyes on it were disturbingly human. Sending one last glance inside the building, I shouted, "If you don't come in a few minutes, I'm going to break this thing down." To my surprise, Emily turned to me and with a nervous laugh said, You're giving me power?" With that, without letting me speak, she walked back inside the building. It was so unnerving I couldn't even bring myself to chase after her. It was only after spending additional moments fighting back the thousands of scattered thoughts in my head did things begin to get roused. As I waited, Emily never answered, and even the cocoon of silence around the cafe wasn't broken, nor filled by the beating sound of the 2 gun shells being picked up. When I glanced back at the table, I noticed that she hadn't even moved, nor the dolls we had placed. The only thing that seemed to move were the dolls, as their fixed gaze turned around to stare at me when I walked in. Note: every doll needs a soul. The note remained tied around the neck of one of the dolls. She muttered as she began to walk towards the exit. That was surprisingly creepy. Still, setting their gaze into mine, the dolls were still able to retain a sense of lifelessness in their voices. Once more, the door was closed shut, only this time the voice came closer and it said, "Someone like you will do perfectly." Yet even so, her scream managed to pierce throughout the night, unlike the other sounds. Oh, look, there's Emily's doll, only the eyes are a bit different.